to all of us. Defense Minister Asif.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I heard with full attention to the Excellency the President of Afghanistan. Pakistan is a frontline state against terrorism, and we have played a very significant role in fighting terrorism in the last 10, 15 years, along with the rest of the world. But responding to Excellency the President of Afghanistan, I must give the narrative of my country that we believe that there cannot be peace in Afghanistan without peace in Afghanistan. It has to be a joint effort by both the countries to restore peace in our region. And I agree with the President of Afghanistan that there are no good Talibans and there are no bad Taliban. They are all bad. Whatever their name is, whatever their brand is, whatever their franchise is, terrorists with any name is bad. So we, the Pakistanis, fully support the effort which is being undertaken to restore peace and order in Afghanistan, because ultimately it will complement us. And in the last 2 years, since President Asif took over, we have demonstrated that through our actions that we support peace both in our own country and in Afghanistan. The military operations which started on 14th of June 2014 brought huge dividends of peace to Pakistan. The North Waziristan was cleared, the sanctuaries were destroyed, the safe havens which were there for many, many years were destroyed, and almost 80% of the terrorism, the incidents of terrorism were finished. Since last week or 10 days, the spate of terrorist attacks in Pakistan has manifested that more is to be done, and we are prepared for that. We'll counter this threat with full might of our state. And we expect and hope that there'll be cooperation from our brothers across the border from Afghanistan, because it's a common fight, at least when it comes to our own region. It's a common fight for the mankind, for humanity. Let me explain. There was another issue which was raised by President Ashraf Ghani, that was of refugees. We have been able to repatriate 650,000 refugees which were residing in Pakistan for more than three decades. We still have 1.4 million refugees, Afghan refugees on our soil. They have been repatriated, and they have been repatriated successfully. This is something which can be replicated, but you have to create conducive environment for the refugees to go back to their homes. That's not possible for Syrians, or Iraqis, or Libyans, or elsewhere in the Middle East. One must understand why these people are refugees in the first place. Who displaced them from their homes? Who made them internally displaced persons or refugees? Few 100,000 or 1 million refugees have come to Europe, and I've heard this over and over again since morning and since yesterday. And the last conference also, the 52nd conference, which focused on refugees, the Europeans and the US, they feel threatened. And you said in the beginning that the political system will be destabilized. What happens to us who are housing these, or who are actually having these refugees for 3 decades, like Pakistan, almost 3 million, more than 3 million refugees, without any substantial aid from outside? Our political system was disturbed, our culture was disturbed, drug and weapon culture was introduced in our country, terrorism was introduced in our country. So you have to take a global view, an international view of this problem, not an isolationist view, not an exclusive view, inclusive view. Include the countries of our region also, Middle East, Afghanistan, Pakistan, the people who have been victim of interventions. One must audit and account whether these interventions have produced peace in our region or whether these interventions have been counterproductive. They brought misery to this region. We still have two unresolved issues in our region, the Kashmir and Palestine. And we have multiple issues now. We had 2 festering wounds. We have maybe 5 or 6 festering wounds in our region. So the global threat of terrorism cannot be solved by suggesting selective solutions. It's a threat which has to be countered by the mankind with its unity and full might. We are states handicapped by our bad economies, our law and order situation, meager resources, but we are fighting. We spent $2 billion in the last 2 years to fight terrorism in Pakistan without any outside help. 60,000 casualties in Pakistan, huge losses to economy, and we have controlled this freak spate of violence in last 1 week. We will take care of that also. We are partners with the rest of the world to fight against terrorism, and we are determined to fight terrorism. But when we are called, like the term which is being used, Islamic terrorism, since morning I have heard it maybe a dozen times. President Trump uses it very frequently. Terrorism is not synonymous to any religion. Terrorism, the terrorists are not Christians or Muslims or Buddhists or Hindus. They are terrorists, they are criminals. So this Islamic phobia, Islamophobia, it is fueled when the terrorism is branded as Islamic terrorism. And secondly, with all due respect, with all humility at my disposal, this ban on 7 states, whatever the considerations US has not helped the fight against terrorism. We in Pakistan are determined to fight against terrorism. We have in the past made mistakes. Since last 3 years, our armed forces have done a very good job, and we intend to continue that. And let me assure the world community that Pakistan is a frontline state in this war, and it will continue to fulfill its obligations to its own people and to the rest of the international community. But if the policies of the West are going to be isolationist or exclusive, it won't help the fight against terrorism. It will fuel terrorism. So it's a common fight. It's a fight which has to be fought by the human race against this infection, this disease, and no exceptions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. General Manguna.
Thank you very much for having me. Let me start by conveying a message from President Buhari.
Caught the attention of people who follow counterterrorism issues in Pakistan was your government's move over the last several months, if I understand it correctly, to place the person who's often identified as the architect of the Mumbai bombings, Hafiz Mohammed Saeed, under house arrest in Lahore. And I'm told that there are other similar actions, LET, Lashkar-e-Taiba camps that are being closed or squeezed, and that your government has taken more action against these individuals and groups in recent months than has been the case. Could you speak to that? Because that's an important development, if it's true.
You're absolutely right. In the last 4 or 5 months, we have put a lot of people who could be potential facilitators of terrorism. And we have put them under Schedule 4, which is a section in our local legal system, which restricts the movement of the individual, and he's monitored, and he cannot move out of a certain area without informing the police. And they are sort of, you can say that they are classified as people who are antisocial or who could be dangerous to the society. So that's sort of measures have been taken, and let me assure the gathering over here that these people who have been in the past, they had some sort of license to move around and license to continue with their work, which was not really terrorist related, but they could be dangerous to our own society. So we have taken some stern actions against them, and we intend to, put them to test, or you can say we intend to bring them to legal framework whereby these people are not free to operate. The organizations they were having, they are not free to operate. These are known organizations which have been banned in the past, like Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jamaat-e-Dawa. These organizations in the past were connected indirectly with the terrorist attacks within Pakistan and outside Pakistan. But our resolve, as I said earlier, to combat terrorism and to finish terrorism, especially in our own country and in Afghanistan, these measures were essential, and we have taken these measures, and we will not hesitate in taking these measures in future also.
Thank you. Last question from me, and then we will go to the audience. I want to ask General Manguno, your government, you and General Buhari have been pressing the fight against Boko Haram into the northeast, into Borno State.
I agree somewhat with this argument, but the victims of the so-called Islamic terrorists, if they have to, one has to give them an identity, religious identity. Almost 90% of people they have killed are Muslims. We have more than 90% are Muslims. And across the Islamic world, our clergy has given fatwas of they not being Muslims, or they do not conform to the basic principles of Islam, which is compassion, love, and tolerance. So this is something which is, just for the sake of identification. It tarnishes the name of my religion. It tarnishes for the way of life I stand for. So that is my problem, That's my problem, and I hope the audience will understand that is a problem with the 1.4 or 1.5 billion Muslims all over the world. The terrorists, Daesh, TTP, Boko Haram, and all the franchises which are being run by this terrorist community, all put together, there will be less than 100,000. all over the place, starting from Nigeria to Pakistan or Afghanistan. So they are not more than that. So condemning or labeling a religion, a community of 1.6 billion or 1.5 billion people for the wrongdoings of 100,000 people or 50,000 people is, in my humble opinion, is unjustified.
General,
Just a brief remark.
sir.
Just a brief remark. Let me remind the audience of the Afghan War of 1980s, which was the final battle of the Cold War. The same people were being dined and wined in the White House. Hikmat Yar, who patched up with the Afghan government just 2 weeks back, who was branded for last 3 decades as a terrorist, as the butcher of Kabul. He was one of those persons who was equated with the founding fathers of the United States of America. So this contradiction and this dichotomy, it bothers us. It bothers us that people who were there, who were the darlings, let's say 20, 30 years back, the jihad, which was something which was revered, let's say 30 years back, the jihad has become back. In my humble opinion, when I look back, the hindsight tells me that we were wrong then. And these people were bad then also, and these people are bad today also. There is no contradiction. The contradiction is on the part of the West, who glorified them way back when they were fighting Soviet Union, and we were the proxy. And now we are paying the price for that, and then we are labeled as Islamic terrorists.
So let's go to the audience. Prince Turkey, I saw your hand up, and Pierre, are you still interested? And then the gentleman all the way in the back. Let's take those 3 questions and then come back to the panel. Your Highness. Asif.
The 2 questions which have been discussed over here in the last an hour or so. One is Highness raised that question, the alliance which was formed way back in 2005 between different intelligence agencies. Saudi Arabia is again taking an initiative to form an alliance, and Pakistan is part of that. Almost 41 countries are there in that alliance to fight or combat terrorism. So that's another initiative which is being led by Saudi Arabia. And that can be a very effective measure against terrorism in our region. Secondly, the sharing of information is a very vital thing. And as for the European version of this problem, I really don't really appreciate whatever is going on here in the EU. But we have been sharing information about terrorists in our country and in our region with the U.S., with the ISAF forces, and it's a common effort in our region with the ISAF forces and Pakistani forces, and this is going on for almost a decade now, and it has proved to be effective. I think if that is replicated elsewhere in Europe or in other parts of the world, where there's a problem of terrorism, I think the movement of the terrorists can be really tracked. So I think if it can be effective in Afghanistan and Pakistan, between the NATO forces stationed in Afghanistan and Pakistan intelligence agencies, it can be effective elsewhere.
General Kelly.
Well, on